Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the second installment of How to Be Cyber Safe, a webinar series on cybersecurity awareness hosted by Computer and Training Extension Division, or CITED, of the Institute of Computer Science, UPLB, and UPLB Information Technology Center, also known as ITC. This is Prince Aragones, and I will be your host for this afternoon. I would like to thank our faculty, students, guests, especially our speaker, for sharing their time with us today. In case that you don't know, we are also live on our ITC Facebook page. I encourage everyone to share this live on their timeline, as I guarantee you that we will have a lot to hear from our special speaker. So please do share. As people are still joining in our Zoom currently, we have 80 participants, and we also have our FFB Live. Let me share with you what this webinar is all about. This program is a part of a 4-week webinar series that started more than a month ago, which was last January 31, in which the director of ITC, Professor Danilo Mercado, has shared with us how to be cyber safe. There are other speakers for this series on March 28th and on April 11, which focuses on cybersecurity among faculty and students. For more details, please check out our Facebook page of UPLB Information Technology Center, or just search as well for the Institute of Computer Science, UPLB. For our audience in this Zoom webinar and in Facebook, if you wish to receive a certificate of attendance, do not forget to answer the evaluation form that will be flashed on the screen later. If you wish to ask from our speakers and group panelists, there will be an open forum or Q&A at the latter part of the program as well. So to officially open the program, let me pass the floor to the Director of the Institute of Computer Science. Let us welcome Professor Jadrick P. Pabico.
Hi, you're here. Wow, awesome. Thank you very much for your interest on how we are going to make ourselves safe in today's cyber world. This webinar series is aimed to provide us with very practical insights on how do we future-proof ourselves in the cyberspace. And mind you, I think you will agree with me that in the future, aside from the physical space, the cyberspace, which I think others have started to brand as the metaverse, will become a significant part of our daily lives. And being careful on how we live or conduct ourselves in that space will protect us from its current exploits and its future problems. We do not want to carelessly leave behind our so-called digital footprints, which later will become our headaches, do we? And so, in the following webinars, in this series, we will learn how to avoid these headaches. My heartfelt thanks go to the ITC, with Sir Danny for collaborating with us to serve the UPLB community. My unending thanks also go to the people behind the scene so that this series will happen. The ICS Computer Training and Extension Division Head, soon to be Professor Catherine Laurentan. Thanks to the speakers, Sir Danny, Sir John Jacob Glenn, and Ma'am Bethel. With them talking, I guarantee you that there will be exciting practical things to learn. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the talks.
Thanks, Sir Jade, for that very engaging opening remarks. I am excited, and I am pretty sure that most of us can relate for today's topic, as most of us are in working in our homes. It is my honor actually to introduce to you our speaker for this afternoon. He is the co-founder and chief digital alchemist of Limitless Lab, which is formerly known as B612 Design. This facilitates progressive organization design, human centered strategies, and recommends contextual technological solutions for customers and stakeholders. He is also an information systems analyst at the University of the Philippines, Los Baños. Without further ado, to speak about secure work from home setup, let us welcome our speaker, an IT Security Compliance Officer at the Information Technology Center ITC, UPLB, Mr. John Jacob Glenn Hanselin.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the second webinar of this series. I'll be your speaker for today, and I'll be sharing between screens. So, kung mapapansin nyo, I'm currently working on the PowerPoint na ma-share sa inyo. Yeah. Throughout the presentation, I'll be moving from the PowerPoint to other windows, other programs to demonstrate to you what I'm about to share this afternoon. So once more, the topic for this afternoon is secure work from home setup. And even though there is already a memo that we should be back at our offices, nonetheless, there are still those who are in alternative working modes. So nonetheless, this is still important to most of us. So I am John Jacob Glenn M. Hanselin, and let's begin. For this afternoon, our topic can be divided into 5. First is identifying risks based on our roles. How to use a reliable personal VPN service. Third, filtering malicious software and adult content at home, especially for those who have kids and families. Fourth, improving our online account security. And last, tools in secure browsing. Through this, I hope that this would be very practical applications that even non-techies can do. Quick review. 2 weeks ago, the ITC released a very simple survey form via an email blast. And out of that, we got 127 responses, where 85% were regular employees. The first question was, who is responsible for ensuring security on your work-issued computer? 69% answered employees should be responsible for that. 15% says it should be the administration or the top management of UPLB. And about 43% ITC. Actually, this is a trick question because in reality nowadays, security is everyone's job. Security is everyone's business. And it says here in the lower text box, especially in cybersecurity, everyone must be involved and accountable. And you might remember these lines based on Sir Danny's presentation a month ago. From the top management to the managers, employees, and suppliers, each must be consciously contributing to a secure working environment. And why do you think people are the weakest link and not technology? Because us, people, makes mistakes. And for the rest of the presentation, let us be reminded that even those that are techie can make mistakes. And so we must be conscious that together we might improve the security culture in our campus. So the next question is, does the university issue computing devices for the work from home setup? And 48% says yes. If you answered yes, most likely you do some data processing, whether it's light, just a part of your job, or it is the bulk of your job. You should know that based on the data privacy law, you are considered a data processor, and you have a responsibility to the organization to report if there are any issues or events that might affect personal information that you hold or your office keeps. And the next question is, does the university allow you to access personal non-work accounts using your work computer? 34% answered, I don't know, while 50% said yes. The correct answer here would be yes. Based on the UP policy, it is allowed for employee students to use non-work accounts using the university computers, provided that they do not affect the professional and the academic performance of the institutions and of other stakeholders. So let's begin where we should begin. It's on risk. What is a risk? Risk is a possible exposure to danger, harm, or loss. Most of the times when we talk about cybersecurity, people think about technology or tools or programs, antivirus, firewalls. But the reality is, we should understand first what kind of danger are we exposed to and what is our role in response to that. Because sometimes preparing for uh, significant dangers might not be really feasible, or it might be even more costly than what we intended to be. So, in terms of identifying dangers in your job, here are 5 things to control risk. First is mitigate. You minimize the potential damage of that danger. Second is transfer risk. This an example of this would be like personal insurance. So we do insurance because in case of possible sickness, death, or maybe loss of work. That's an example of risk transfer. Third is avoidance. We don't allow the risk to exist in our organization. An example of that for uh, for UPLB is that we do not want to be tied down to proprietary programs. And so we avoid as much as possible proprietary software. And last but not the least, acceptance. And an example of that would be the free Wi-Fi, or rather the UPLB Wi-Fi. It is much more needed to have connectivity, and that security actually comes second. And that's why if you've been around in the university for more than 5 years, you might notice that even in the UPLB Wi-Fi, sometimes viruses, malware can pass through. So knowing these things, what can you do? First is identify the importance of the data that you are handling personally. Are there multiple copies of this data that you're handling in different locations? When it says different locations, hindi lang sa Drive C or Drive D sa downloads or sa documents, but rather is it backed up in a hard drive or maybe in Google Drive? Or is some other employee has a copy of that? Are they privately and stored securely? Second, identify the devices used to perform work in a work from home scenario. Sometimes we don't know that na-connect pala live pareho ang mga computers na containing the same data or has access to the same data. And one computer, when used by someone else or a colleague, might accidentally modify the data without intentionally doing it. And third is think about the different scenarios, the best case scenario and the worst case scenario if the data or the information that you have is lost or damaged. What can you possibly do? And this one way to prevent possible dangers in affecting your own data. How do we do it practically? One way to do it is to separate work from personal matters. One way is to use different devices for work and personal activities, like the first image on top. The pros are that no data would be personal and work data would remain separate. But the cons would be it is impractical to most people. Why? Because for for me, even though I have a work issued laptop, my issues of space at table, or worse, we still have our cell phones where we actually access both work related tasks and our personal routine activities. Another way to segment or to separate work from personal matters is by using two different Windows accounts, such as in the image in the lower left, to segment personal and work tasks. Though there is also an issue that if you do not have a certain degree of self-discipline, it would still not work. Another way is to use separate browsers in doing work and personal activities. And I'll demonstrate that to you later. And to learn to use browser features, such as bookmark settings, and to ensure that all program updates, Windows updates, will only occur after 5 p.m. So since I shared the whole screen, not just the the PowerPoint, you should be able to see this. Can you see the Windows taskbar pop up? Yes or no? May sumasagot pa. Hindi ko makita ang chat.
Yes, yes, we can see.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay. So based on the slides, we could check um, updates by pressing the window button in your keyboard, and then we could actually change active hours to ensure that the updates would not occur during office hours. In this way, if we are doing sessions such as this, webinars and meetings, it will not disrupt our work activities. Another thing that I've mentioned a while ago is on using different browsers for different tasks. And in this example, I'm using actually, in reality, I only use 3 different browsers, but for demonstration's sake, I have how many here? Currently, there are 4. As you can see, we have Opera, we have Edge, we got Firefox, and Opera GX. One of the things that I admire about Opera browser is its lightweight compared to Chrome, and that embedded na ang Facebook Messenger. So yun, Telegram, and even sound players. So you could integrate your Spotify or Apple Music. You can check your bookmarks. So what are the purposes of bookmarks? Bookmarks are rather like real bookmarks that we use in books, helps us find certain pages that we find interesting for another time. And so how do we do bookmarks? For those who haven't used it before, a bookmark is triggered when in Opera, when you click the heart icon on the upper right part of the browser, and it always asks where it will go. So for ease of finding it, you could put in a bookmarks bar and press done. But since Opera has this bookmarks icon, you could just simply click that. For Edge, it's more like a star, if I'm correct. Yes, it's a star. So if you go to Facebook and star, and they call it favorites in Edge. And in Firefox, it's also a star. And so when you bookmark this page, just like Opera, it has the same procedure. So using bookmarks is very helpful in organizing different references from our browsers and prevents us from clicking wrong links as we do research down the road. Now, where were we? Oh, yes. So one of the things that you should understand is why separate work and personal tasks by using browsers, because we can easily be distracted. And so by putting bookmarks of work in a certain browser, we could somehow have a linear approach on how to approach things. So these are more related to the research I'm doing related to work. And regarding games and entertainment, these are all the bookmarks related to that. So in a sense, there's a separation between work and personal activities. And so if there is an accidental download, you would know where it comes from. Did it come from the work activities that I'm doing or from the personal things that I'm doing at the side or during break time? Next is, we also asked about this, the state of the computers that UPLB has shared, or rather UPLB has provided for us, the workers. And one of the questions is if you're using Windows computer, which version of Windows is installed on the computer that you normally use to connect to the internet? 74% says they're using Windows 10, which is great. In fact, even though you have Windows 10, you still have to update at least monthly. But what is worrying is that we still have Windows XP, somewhat 5%. So I understand that in certain segments and offices in the campus, we do have XP to actually support some of our printers that are dot matrix. But for those that can upgrade, please do tell your supervisors that it is an urgent need to update your computers because it might affect the security that you have, especially if you're dealing with research data. For those using Mac, what Mac OS do you have? And a third, or at least almost a third, 31%, says that they have Mac OS 12 monitoring. Mac OS 12 was released last year, 2021, in October. And somehow that's a good sign that most of our Mac users are, or rather, a third of our Mac users are actually updated. But we still have 10% and a little about 30% also that have OS of Mac that are older than 5 years old. That is the El Capitan, the Sierra, and the High Sierra. So those are from 2015 to 2017. And if you're a Mac user for quite some time, you might have noticed, or an iPhone user for quite some time, there comes a point in time that you cannot update your software of certain programs anymore because your OS is already updated. And if you're using a work computer, it should be, I suggest that you also raise that also to your supervisor that you also need to update the hardware that you have in terms of Mac if it's more than 5 years already. Here, how often do you use Windows Update? Never, 15%. And the obvious answer why most put it at never is because Windows Update can be very disturbing at times kung kailan ka busy doon nag-update. Pag on mo ng computer, mag-update, di ba? More than half, whoever says 57.5, automatic update is enabled. And that is good if the bulk of your work is not time sensitive in regards to accessing data from your computers. But nonetheless, regardless if bad timing on Windows Update, it is essential to do that at least once a month. So VPN and why it matters. If you are in the university, you don't actually need to use VPN. Why? Because our network within the university is already filtered and from malicious links as much as possible. We do have a real-time people dealing that or observing that in real time, which is our team, is the team of the systems admin of ITC. So they prevent possible malicious activities from actually entering the network. Though, of course, it doesn't happen 100% because, of course, there's no such thing as 100% safety. So why do we use VPN? in work from home scenarios, sometimes we can't just work from home. Minsan nawawala ng internet sa bahay. Minsan, yung kapitbahay nagpa-install ng fiber tapos yung technician binunot yung fiber natin so wala tayong internet and so we are forced to work somewhere else. And that's where VPN is important. Why? VPN or virtual private network provides safety through anonymity. So if the owner of the, if you connect to a free Wi-Fi, the owner of that network, if he or she is techie, would not actually see the traffic or the activities you've been doing if you're using a VPN. It also bypass geo-locked content. So if you are in the a researcher and you're trying to buy aircraft tickets to certain places because kailangan mag-field work, VPN also helps in some scenarios. Dahil mas mura pag sa ibang lugar ka bibili, supposedly. And VPN helps you do that. VPN is a cost-effective security, though it is not assured that it doesn't give you assurance of 100% safety. But nonetheless, it is an effective, significant contributor to security. The not so good thing about VPN, however, is that it significantly slows down speed, especially if you are connecting in a Wi-Fi in a network that has limited bandwidth. And so if you are always in Facebook, you might see an ads that this is a VPN for Netflix. Yes, because not all VPNs are made equal. Some VPNs are made to actually distribute video-based traffic. What I'm going to share to you today is Siphon. Siphon VPN is basically an open source VPN, and it is made by the Citizen Lab. They are based in University of Toronto in Canada. So one thing about Siphon is that you're assured that who made this VPN, and the purpose of the VPN, the tool that they made was so that journalists that are mostly persecuted in their own nations can safely access the internet wherever they are. So you should use this if you are not sure whether the free Wi-Fi where you're connecting to is safe or not. But don't use this in campus because two things might happen. One, you might not get internet at all. The security of the network would lock you down. Second, you would get an email from one of our system administrators that you are trying to access unauthorized service because it it might be misinterpreted as something that is illegal. But nonetheless, how do we use Siphon? So as of 2020, they have actually done a lot of improvisation with the tool that Siphon is now available even for iOS. So I'm not going to activate Siphon here because if I do that, the Zoom connection would disconnect. So Siphon is available for Android, iOS, and the new Mac, and even for the PC. What is the good thing about Siphon is that number one, you are sure that the creators of the tool is legit and won't use your data for malicious or unnecessary things. Secondly, the free Siphon is only limited to 5 Mbps, and if you want to increase it, the bandwidth, you have to pay for it. But nonetheless, 5 Mbps is already enough for you to do your office works, such as checking emails, doing a Zoom call with a minimal browser tabs. I've actually done that already. When I say minimal, that's about 3 to 5 tabs only, and you're not doing YouTube at the same time or streaming music. And it's helpful in accessing academic literature via the web. And so some of this literature are bound or restricted to certain regions such as Europe, US, and it really helps in in doing academic research. So the organization behind Siphon, the Citizen Lab based on Toronto, they actually also made an analysis of the COVID-19 apps of ASEAN back in 2020. And these were one of the papers that actually triggered the Senate hearings on why should we not adapt certain contact tracing apps, because they are potentially dangerous in collecting personal data that should not be collected at all. Second is the next thing that uh, we should look at is filtering malware and adult content. If you are in the campus, this is automatic. This seems automatically done by a machine or machines in our network, which are configured by the ITC, different ITC teams. But when you're at home, you are responsible for your own safety. The internet is not the same as of the 1990s. The internet today is a dangerous place. And one of the things to actually help you in filtering content is through DNS filtering. So what is DNS? DNS, or the domain name service, is like a phone book of the internet that remember that the machine or the computers only recognize numbers, while people only remember words. And so this DNS actually acts like a bridge to convert numbers to words and words to numbers. And with that, here are some free tools, or rather DNS, that helps us in filtering content. Um, about a few years in 2020, the Cloudflare actually released the 1.1.11 for ComSci people, both faculty and students. This type of DNS enables faster connectivity in terms of DNS transactions. But they also released the 1.1.1.3, and which actually filters malware. Malware is short form for malicious software. That includes viruses, spyware, and a lot of them, and adult content. When you say adult content, that's basically nudity and more. So to use this, we have here on the right Cloudflare for families, the 1.1.1.3, 1.003. And but at times when I've actually used this, there are minsan may bugs, minsan hindi gumagana. What is more effective in my experience is the clean browsing. And these are the IP addresses that have been used in clean browsing, which is, I've personally experienced much more effective than the Cloudflare solution, but nonetheless, you could try it out for yourself. So how do you actually use this? So there are two ways to use this. One is to put this in your device. So that could be your computer, the PC. And how do you do that? In the Windows, you press, just follow this one, Windows key plus ncpa.cpl. ncpa.cpl simply is a network connections panel, control panel. So cpa.cpl. So what you're going to see here is simply how your computer connects to the internet. And based on what you can see is that I'm connected via Wi-Fi. And how can you say that I'm connected to Wi-Fi? Because the rest of the connections have red X's. That means there's no connection. And the only green icon here is in the Wi-Fi, Ginger V. So to change the DNS IP addresses, simply go to Properties. So if you're connected via Wi-Fi, you do this. But if you're connected to the wired, you change the Ethernet and go to the IPv4 and Properties. And you can see here that I've already filled it out, the Cloudflare DNS IP addresses. And if you have IPv6, this is checked, you can also edit that. But yeah, but I haven't put it yet because I don't use IPv6 in this connection. So that would remain um, empty. So what it does is simply filter your connection. However, that's not the sure way to do it. The best way to do it is to access your home router. So your home router it depends whether it's PLDT, Globe, Converge, or maybe the local cable uh, connect corporation in your area, but nonetheless, you have to access it. The bad thing lately is that if you can see in the browser, I'm trying to access the our my my home router. My connection right now is PLDT, and the thing about PLDT is that they've actually taken control of your home route. When I say taken control, you can't do much with the Wi-Fi routers of PLDT today. It means you cannot change the DNS. So sa mga Globe, sa Converge, I think kaya pa, pwede pang gawin. So if you can edit it, it's usually found in the WAN or the wide area network. But in PLDT, it is not editable. So dito sa PLDT, makita natin na built-in ang nilagay yung DNS IP address ng PLDT. In other internet service providers na edit pa ito. So once na na-change nyo yan, let's say if you have Converge Globe or some other ISP, your traffic is actually already filtered. Regardless kung nalagyan nyo ng DNS na ganito, if you have edited the DNS of the devices in your house. So this is very helpful if you have kids in the house. So yun. Magpo-provide kami ng copy ng presentation, so you could also check that later. Next, improve account security. I think this has been done by most social media platforms. They always send notifications, even emails, to tell you that you should put your contact number or your cell phone number, bind your cell phone number with your account, enable two-factor authentication. Our banks already do that, or multi-factor authentication. I think everyone knows this already. But to be sure, and to make sure na hindi, minsan kasi sa sobrang dami niyan, minsan parang in-ignore na lang natin. One of the things to help you segment or separate, to know na kung legit ba or hindi isang bagay, is to have a separate email for recreation purposes of the internet. So only use your EUP mail for work-related, or let's say serious topic-related websites. If it's about Netflix K-drama, maybe register your personal email that is not under you. In this way, you would know kung mayroong mga OTP, kung sino talaga yung nag-send sa'yo, kung saan ang gagaling. And in terms of password, there has been a change in what we know of regards to password security. Last year, the NIST, or the National Institute of Standards and Technology of the Department of Commerce of US, which releases the safeguards standards in terms of internet security in the USA, released this document and had changes in their recommendations. For short, in summary, they said that password length is now more important than password complexity. Di ba, dati narinig natin na dapat mayroong asterisk, dapat may tawag ito, NEM, gano'n. But dito, binawi nila. Bakit kaya? They said, however, that passphrases should consist of 15 or more characters. Mas importante ang haba kaysa complexity. And that organizations should not enforce regular password resets. This also happened for quite some time din sa UPLB. There was a time na certain number of months kailangan mag-reset ng password. and that uppercase, lowercase, or special characters are not required. Bakit nila binawi yung ganong guideline? Because what they've encountered is that people would only keep the minimum compliance when doing that. If you have to change your password again, they will choose the most or the easiest password na nagko-comply sa rules, which is mas madaling hulaan ng mga hackers or rather sa dictionary attacks. Kaya ang next nilang recommendation is make sure that screen all new passwords against commonly used and compromised passwords. So to make sure that your passwords are not easily madaling hulaan, unang tanong is, nasa dictionary ba yan? Kung nasa dictionary, X na hindi na pwedeng gawing password. Pangalawa, important date ba yan sa buhay mo? Date like a birth date or a significant life event in your life or in your family's life. A name of a pet, automatic X na rin yan. Yun. And that for developers, sabi ito, enable show password when typing. At saka limit the number of failed password attempts before account lockout. So, ano yung gagawin natin kung hindi pwede yung nasa dictionary? Kung hindi pwede yung mga important dates sa buhay natin na madali lang tandaan para sa atin? One of the recommendations is context-based passphrases. What it means is that we have to make somehow connections between certain things that makes it easier for us to remember, which sounds weird, pero kaya mo palang gawin. Example, yung sa eBay. I'm sure most of us don't use eBay, pero ginamit ko lang eBay for the sake of simplicity. So what they do is, what are the 4 words that you can think of with eBay? So ang example lang dito is edible, barometer, acid, yak. Ganon. Tapos, ang ginawa lang ng user is clean lang niya. Binaliktad lang niya ang arrangement. Tapos nilagyan niya ng dash at ng hash. And tapos na. So, for me, na di naman yan ang first word na maaalala ko sa Y, na yak, mahirap hulaan. Pero if you know meron ka alam mong mga favorite words na hindi publicly known, there are good things, there are good, pwede silang maging good contributor sa iyong mga bagong password. So, the reality is, if you want to make complicated passwords, you have to write them down. And dito, ang suggestion ko is, you write them down in a piece of paper and you hide that paper somewhere in your house na walang makakita, but don't label it as a password. At kung makakalimutan mo man, balikan mo yung phrase na yun. Okay. So in terms of tools for safer browsing, now you know that we could prevent malicious activities from happening into our network by filtering content via the DNS, by reducing our risk. But sometimes it's not enough. Minsan, napapasok pa rin tayo or hindi tayo sure. So one of the things that, or rather 3 of the most popular tools that I'm using in terms of browsing securely is to use internet.nl, Netcraft, and Malwarebytes. Internet.nl is actually a website, and it actually measures the security of a website na ina-access mo, if legit ba siya, at saka sumusunod ba siya sa latest standards ng internet. Netcraft browser extension is actually helpful in identifying phishing websites. And Malwarebytes is like, para sa akin, parang ito ang alcohol ko sa mga Windows machines ko. One, because sometimes the more popular EVS, antivirus systems, anti-spyware, will not be triggered. So Malwarebytes, napaka-light lang niya. And surprisingly, it works even if merong ibang antivirus na tumatakbo in the background in Windows. So how do we use these things? So once more, let's open our browser. So I'll be using Opera again. So makita niyo dito na naka-embed na siya. So paano umabot yan dyan? So this also works in Firefox. Wala pa sa Firefox ko. Pero pwede siya. When you go there, manage extensions, and you can search that. Ano ba yung una? Netgraph. Yeah, Netgraph, like that. So what does Netgraph do? Basically, Netgraph shows you what a website, ano ang yung mga specifics ng website na hindi nakita in your by an ordinary user. So dito, I'm looking at CNN.com, and based on the risk rating, it's 0. It means it's very safe. So if the risk rating is 10, ibig sabihin yan, very dangerous. So pinapakita dito na it's green, so it's safe. It is first seen in 2008 of December. So most likely, ito nga yung legit na CNN na website. Because those na yung fake websites, they usually have their date in the same year when you're accessing it. Is it supporting HTTPS? Ito SSL v3, so not yet. This is the latest SSL. And if you want to know more, if you are a developer or a hacker, usually they do this. We call it passive reconnaissance. Is that they check ano yung nasa loob ng website nila. So makita natin dyan kung sino may-ari, saan siya na-access, sa US, sa EU, diba? At makikita mo dyan kung legit ba siya, may certificate check, okay. So for developers, this is helpful to know para meron silang comparison sa kanilang develop ng mga platforms or websites. For hackers, it's important to know what are the weaknesses of a certain website. For us, for people na hindi naman techie, it's simply easier to just check whether it's green or red and whether the risk rating is nearer to 0 or nearer to 10. Yung ganun. So try natin very UPLB. Try natin UPLB. Yun. So UPLB. Anong sinasabi ng Netgraph? Risk rating ng UPLB ay nasa 3. Still safe, less than 5, di ba? So host natin ay Cloudflare. Yan. And bakit sa US? Because, well, he knows that's a Cloudflare, and Cloudflare is a US organization, or rather a corporation. Kaya US yung lumalabas. Yan. And so kung dito rin makita natin kung mayroong problems with the website, kung sino pwede may contact. Nandito lang yun. Nasaan na ba siya? Ayun. So if you have problems with your email in terms of you could email GHDAO to report issues with email or the website. He is one of our system administrators. So yeah, it also helps whether kung meron ba talagang legit tech support ang isang website, because they actually put there kung saan who you can contact in their organization. So, and the other one is Malwarebytes. Malwarebytes, the extension is simply like a browser antivirus tracker. So pinapakita lang niya kung ano yung, yun nga. It blocks certain trackers, malwares, and PUPs, and basically dangerous scripts. And not all trackers are bad because they are mostly found in ads like Google Analytics, ganon, or sa Facebook. But mas nakakatakot pag may malware scams, ganon. So sa UPLB na wala naman. So sa trackers marami dahil Joomla tapos marami mga. Yeah. In let's try other websites. So itong CNN, International News Agency. And you can see here na maraming numbers. And yun, with trackers. It will identify what trackers they have. And based on statistics, kahit sobrang daming trackers dahil malaking organization at website itong CNN, nakita mo na wala ding based on Malwarebytes, wala siya na-detect na malware or scams. So this would actually help you if yung websites na binivisit mo ay legit or hindi. So kahit hindi ka technical na person, by looking at the indicators, the risk rating, the color, green over the red, and also in Malwarebytes, the numbers, and it helps you to know whether you should proceed with that or not, especially pag mga mukhang bank or yung mga important na websites. And yes, Internet NL. Internet NL, where are you? Oh yes. Internet NL. Internet NL is actually a joint project with the Dutch government and the Internet Society, and along with other civil society organizations, in terms of this is a good way to test the safety of the the websites you're visiting and also the emails that are contacting you. Kung nagdududa kayo sa email na nag-send sa inyo, ilagay nyo dito yung example at up.edu.ph. Yung ganon. So, start on the UPLB. Dito makita natin na hindi umabot sa 100% ang UPLB. For one, we're still working on it. Yun, because IPv6 disabled ulit natin nung pandemic, but we could turn that on anytime sa pagbalik ng mga tao. And DNSSEC, that's actually not a problem of the university, but with the .ph. So nakadepende sa .ph. But nonetheless, nakita natin dito na legit naman ang uplb.edu.ph. So, whether may mga nakaduda-duda mga websites, ilagay lang natin dito and you'll see na mas magiging red yan or mas mababa ang score as you check it. So, on the most important part when it comes to cybersecurity, most people usually ask, ano ang best na antivirus na gagamitin mo for your computer? And so we asked this question also in the survey 2 weeks ago. And surprisingly, marami pala talaga ginagamit na antivirus softwares ang mga tao sa UPLB. Total naman, 16,000 din ang tao sa UPLB, di ba? Employees and the students. And did you pay for your antivirus software or is it a free version? Sabi ito, ang free version kalahati. And that's okay. But one of the things that worries me is that meron itong yellow, cracked version. Usually ito yung binibenta sa Lazada o sa Shopee na umurahing parang ginagawang tiyangge, gaya ng ginagawa sa mga Netflix accounts, Spotify accounts. The thing is, it might be actually worse doing that with the antivirus dahil hindi ka sure kung na-tamper na ba yung platform na yun, or rather that account is being monitored by others. So please do not use cracked version, or do not get accounts, legit or other paid accounts from non-legal means. So back to the question, what AV or what antivirus is more important? Meron pala itong slide na to. How often do you update your antivirus software? Half says never. And that's a bad thing actually, because there are always new dangers in the internet, and so we need to update our antivirus software. So it's true that kung mahina ang machine or ng computer, it adds parang babagal yung internet mo or bagal yung pag-load ng mga programs, but it also adds danger kung hindi ka mag-update. And second is, do you use any anti-spyware? 77.2% says no, because hindi siya sikat, rather hindi masyado alam kung ng mga tao kung ano yung anti-spyware. The reality is this. The truth is, as of today, it's very rare for you to encounter viruses. The whole point of the antivirus is simply a marketing term para madaling matandaan ng mga tao anong role mo. But the truth is, there are a lot of different malwares, malicious softwares around. And there are Trojans, yung discuss ni Sir Danny last webinar, yun, konti pa lang yun. But ito lang sikat sa mata antivirus. So the marketing people just stuck with it. So what is the difference between antivirus and anti-spyware? The virus, like the real virus, the biological virus, is self-replicating, dumadami. At nakaka-damage siya sa information ng yung computer. Ang spyware naman, hindi ganun. Tahimik lang siya, hindi mo mapapansin. Ang ginagawa lang niya ay namboboso sa ginagawa mo sa computer mo. So nagnanakaw, maaari niya nakawin ang iyong passwords, ang history ng browser mo. Yun lang ang ginagawa ng spyware. Which might at first might not be that dangerous, pero kung ang data na hinahawakan mo, ang mga o isa ka importanteng tao, maaari itong magamit against sa iyo. So on one hand, spyware doesn't have immediate negative effects, but it might have greater damages in the future. So today, most of the antivirus programs that we know of have usually the anti-spyware component. But usually, itong anti-spyware component, ganing nasa paid version nila. So parang in-incorporate nila yun. So, kaya ko nilagay itong screenshot na to dahil with the question is what is the best antivirus around? The truth is, there's no one size fits all. It depends on what your behaviors are in using the computer, on what platform you are, OS, kung Mac ka ba, of Windows, at kung anong type ng machine meron ka. So, nilagay ko to dahil, nasa na ba yun? Wala. History. Where are you? Kunin natin yung as you can see here, one of the things na kaya ko share is because they do have rather a neutral view on how they look at different platforms around. So every year, PC Mag actually does this. They do a comparison of the different released security solutions, and they have different interpretations on what these different solutions, security AVs, antivirus solutions can do. So they label nila as best Mac antivirus program. So many rank nila yan by the top 10, ilalagay nila dito sa taas. But the reality is more than 100 yung kanilang rate. And wala silang they also put the pros and the cons. Ito yung gusto ko sa kanila. And so dito ba, yun, may pros and cons. And one of the things na makita dito, isa sa mga ginagamit ko ay one of the three that I use is Bitdefender. It is true na ang Bitdefender may bayad yung VPN feature niya. So kahit na sinasabi may VPN siya, magbabayad ka, paywall yung harapin mo pag clinic mo yun. And that it is not that effective sa Mac. O may limited na yung kanyang tawag ito. As of the 2021 version. In terms of free security, so if wala kang pambayad talaga, a Windows user ka, Avast is one of the best around. But yun nga, mayroong mga features na hindi niya kayang gawin. So, sabi dito, advanced firewall features absent. So, this is one of the best way for non-technical people to actually see kung ano yung best antivirus na pwede sa kanila in sa budget na meron sila. So, one of the things na meron dito is Windows Defender. So, nag-improve ang Windows Defender as of 4 years ago. But it is actually not that great in terms of phishing protection test. So, if you want to be more technical about it, nasa baba, merong mga ibang mga documentation on how the tests were done by different organizations. But nonetheless, this would be a good way or a good tool for you to check ano ba ang afford nyo and for anong features ang kailangan. So, nandiyan ang pros and cons and kung ilan yung mga, yun nga, ano mas important sa inyo. But of course, many question mamaya na na-post sa survey 2 weeks ago that would be answered by some of our colleagues. So, so the reality is there is no best antivirus or anti-spyware software. There's no one-size-fits-all solution for 600% cybersecurity because there is no 100% protection. So a few questions and comments from the survey. Is there a tool that can protect one with 100% protection against cyber attacks? Answer natin no. Can UPLB purchase corporate virus protection software and deploy this to all UPLB issued laptops? I think the best person who can answer that later would be the director of IDC. Will there be any provision at work for software that address cybersecurity related to the second question? But one of the things na important, it is not a question but an observation. Most UPLB employees resort to FB Messenger for work-related communication. And totoo nga naman, convenient to use FB Messenger. But we do encourage to use your office emails because for one, it has madali siyang i-track. And it is important, especially sa bureaucracy and sa administrative tasks, that there should be ease of tracking sa mga documents. And so please do your due diligence in transferring files because it might be used against you kung sa FB Messenger ka send ng mga official documents. And dito rin sinasabi na, are you going to assist UPLB for free in case of a hacking incident? If it concerns a UPLB-owned computer, that is a yes. It would also involve the DPOs or the data privacy officers of our university. If you are an employee or a worker, HRDO, the head of the HRDO is the DPO. If you're a student, yun yung sa head ng OUR, yung DPO. And with the ITC would be assisting you on these matters. But in case it's a personal thing, yun, may encounter yan sa later ng mga webinars. Yun. How secure is a MacBook? If you ask this question like, say, 10, 12 years ago, I would say that a MacBook is much more secure than a Windows machine. But today, that is not true. Because sumikat ang Apple at mas maraming platforms, lalo na since sumikat ang iPhone in 2007, they are equally vulnerable with the Windows machine. Why? Yung mga nag-opportunista, yung mga kumikita sa paggawa ng mali, syempre, kung saan yung mas maraming pwedeng kakitaan, pupunta nila. And as many people are flocking to the Apple platforms, it is only normal that those who have malicious intents would also target those segment of the population. Next, is it safe to use the managed passwords in Google? Yes and no. Only use that if you are saving passwords for trivial websites. Example, Spotify. If you access it via web, or maybe Netflix, or maybe, ano ba? Basta yung mga kailangan mo sign in, as long as it does not concern about finances, or it does not concern about the email that is registered to other social media accounts, yes, save it to the Google. I'm not saying that the Google managed passwords is dangerous. I'm just saying that sa tingin ko naman, hindi mo naman siguro makakalimutan ang passwords ng mga pinaka-importanting emails mo, di ba? So for the rest, pwede mo save na hindi nakaka-damage or hindi walang financial, maaaring makaka-damage sa'yo, save it in Google or somewhere else, or in the browser. But for the platforms, email addresses, or your bank logins, do not save them as much as possible. The next question is, why do you need to ask the real birth date? Exactly. Ilagay ko lang yung question na yun is to see if people will actually get the whole point of the question. There are many things lalo sa ating country that sa forms, maraming mga blank, mga hinihinging information na totally hindi naman connected sa forms. So, ano kinalaman ng real birth date sa webinar ng cybersecurity? Wala, di ba? But it can be used maliciously if hindi UPLB ang papasign up. Di ba? Dahan-dahan kinokollect yung data. At usually ginagawa nila to set up social media accounts that actually messages other people to actually scam them for money. And that is a reality even as of now. So these are a few questions na na-encounter ko sa survey. And if you have any more questions, feel free to go to the Q&A section and you can address it to anyone from at the panel. So thank you for that. Oh, mayor question. What if I use a paid VPN for my personal laptop inside the campus? Will that be okay? And there are three possible things that might mangyari. One is that one of our system admins will detect you, or the machines would detect you, and they will, if the machine automatically blocks you, well, mawawalan ka ng connection. Second, if it's a person who detects you, maaring mag-email yan sa'yo, parang i-hold yung connection mo. And i-monitor ka to a certain date until na ma-contact. Third is that you can access, parang naka-access ka, but at times nag-lag ang yung connection. And so, yes, you can try that, but yun yung three possible things that might happen, you might encounter if you enable VPN inside the campus. Another anonymous attendee asked, are there open source alternatives for Netcraft and Malwarebytes? The reality is that the whole InfoSec industry is actually, it takes a lot of resources to run because it usually does R&D. And so these are usually created by either one, corporate entities, mga corporations that are for profit, or secondly by CSOs, like yung internet.nl, ISOC yun with the Dutch government. So far, walang Philippine equivalent for that. So the reality is yung mga browser extensions, lahat ng like Avast, Bitdefender, they also have that. But itong Netcraft and Malwarebytes kasi sa akin is a totally ano siya basically they are not so common and they provide a different perspective on looking at things. Sometimes yung mga hindi nakita ng mas popular na solutions, these less popular solutions can find them. Do you have tips po on how to minimize the risk in using oh yes, do you have tips on how to minimize the risk in using app website blockers? That's why I use the bookmarks, because when I have the bookmarks already, ang ginagawa ko, disable ko yung ibang mga blockers, or whitelist ko sila. So basically, by the time na nag-access na ako, I just click the bookmarks, and because I'm sure na legit yung sites na yon. So yes, it is true na yung yung Netcraft and Malwarebytes, not much para sa akin. It does not in terms of history of taking my browser history, it doesn't really affect me much, because reality is Google tracks it if you are using Chrome. Facebook does it if you are logged inside that browser. So pati yung nasa terms and agreement nila. So for me, as long whether you use the private browsing or not, it is tracked. Yun yung totoo. Na-track yun ng mga social media platforms na sikat. So it is not true that they do not track yung mga private private windows. So for me, the risk is low, for since most platforms do that anyway. So yun nga, totally simula pa lang, in-advise na separate yung machines or computers if you're going to use work and personal stuff. But then again, it also helps to have different browsers or different accounts to somehow separate yung identity na makuha nila from based on your history or based on your browsing history. And if you have any questions, please do feel free to ask. And marami po tayong part sa panel na willing mag-answer din.
Yes, the floor is still open for any questions from our audience in our Zoom webinar and our Facebook Live. So for the people in our webinar, you can drop your questions in the chat box. And on the other hand, for those watching us in Facebook Live, please do drop them in the comment section below. Please also indicate your name and your affiliation when doing so. You can direct your questions to our speaker, Mr. Jacob Hansalim, and to our panelists, Professor Danilo Mercado and Maribetel De Robles. I think we have another question, sir. Is it possible for us to use EDAP system, most especially to students, or not?
In terms of network tracking, yes, but for tracking in terms of the platforms, no. LDAP was designed for network purposes, unlike yung ibang proprietary versions that actually, which are more popular because they can enable tracking of ID or identity via platforms, via programs. So sa LDAP systems and network related services lang yung kaya nilang i-track. Yung ganun. And yun yung sa ngayon, yung answer.
Okay, thank you, sir. Do you have any more questions? I have a random question, sir. This is just so trivial, sir. Is it possible for UPLB to provide paid VPN subscription to students and faculty?
I cannot answer that, but maybe Director Sir Danny can.
Sir Danny, are you there?
Okay. Yan. Hello?
Hi, sir.
Medyo mahal yata yan. Ang problema natin kasi, actually, we're looking at some options to extend our security to the cloud. Kaya lang, medyo malaki yung budget na kailangan eh. So hindi pa practical at the moment, no? So but if you need the VPN access, no, we use VPN access. For example, you're working from home and you need to access certain resources within the campus, we can provide you VPN access, no? So just request sa ITC that you need we're using OpenVPN. So it's an open source implementation. So walang license cost doon. So if you need to do that from outside, I mean you're working from home or you're traveling, you're accessing internet from internet cafe to do work, no? And access some server inside UPLB campus network, then we can provide that for you. So just request, no? Tapos kanina yung question about LDAP. Okay, we're actually using LDAP when you access our Wi-Fi, no, you need to log in. Then we're using LDAP for that. And also, ano pa bang application natin naka-LDAP? Yung naka-LDAP yon, yung OMS. OMS is also using LDAP. So we're using LDAP for our identity management for the internal network. But we're also using yung Google account, no, the UP Mail. So if you're like a student, a bona fide student and employee or a contractor, then when you're provided that email, then we can also use that to authenticate you. in UPLB and the UP system. Yes.
Okay, sir. Thank you. I think we have another question po. Let me read it. Meron po ba kayong recommendations for Google services alternatives? Should I make an effort to do so? So far, I have changed my emails to Proton Mail, to Nota, etc., and using browsers like Mozilla, Brave, etc., instead of Google Chrome, where I still haven't found alternatives for Google Drive, Docs, and Sheets, etc. Sir Jacob or Sir Danny?
Um, in terms of collaboration software, um, yun yung isang in terms of secure collaboration software. When I say secure, most of the popular proprietary tools are secure, more or less secure. But of course, the issue is on tracking behavior if you're connected to that. So if you connect Google like Drive, um, there's also a chance na monitor din lang yung browsing history. And it's also part of the terms and conditions. So far, personally, wala pa ako na-encounter ganon because one of the things na I think for now, wala pang feasible way to do it in a non-profit way. yung ganon. Because for one, it collaboration softwares usually take a lot of resources. One for storage, two is the actual platform to actually the thing about Google Drive is that it wasn't an easy tool to make even for Google. It took them about 5 years to actually to make that. Microsoft Office took about more than a decade to do that para maging parang seamless yung experience is one thing na hindi madaling i-replicate kahit na for a non-profit organization or coalitions. So there might be alternatives to that, but in terms of experience, hindi pareho sa mga popular na, na Google Drive, OneDrive. In fact, doon nagbabank ang mga proprietary platforms on the seamless experience of actually doing things together.
Okay, thank you, sir. I think we have time for 1 to 2 more questions. Do we have any more questions from our audience? Anyone else? Uh, Let me ask na lang po ulit. Sorry, I have
Yan.
several questions.
Anonymous.
Sir
Yes.
Jacob, you mentioned earlier yung importance of having multiple types of browsers for separating your work and your personal stuff. But I've encountered a feature in Google where you have different profiles for each emails. Is it enough for
Um,
such?
in Hindi actually. Dahil kung hindi ka mag-assign in, even let's say Facebook or Google, they call it a shadow profile. You are non-existent in the platform, but nonetheless, the behavior exists.
Mm,
So parang you are person X. Di lang nila alam na tie up ko kanino. Pero kung lagi mong binivisit ang yung my name mo na yes so ma-associate nila sa ganung pangalan. So shadow profiles are one of the ways famous social media platforms actually invite new users. Dahil alam nila, maaaring bago itong user. So tingnan natin, ano bang email na associate dito? Yung mga ganun. And send sila ng invitation. And question here. What do you recommend is signing online petitions? That's a good thing. Because as of, was it last year, yung parang discriminate yung UP students and faculty based on yung harassed by social media platforms because of us signing up in an online petition. That is why important na may hiwalay kang email for non-tawag dito, non, how should I put it, non-serious matters. Para kung i-harass ka man, doon lang sa kabilang email sila mag-harass. At saka yung profiles associated with that email yung ita-target, hindi yung actual mong target. Most of the people who actually signed up for the petitions that were criticizing the government at that time were actually the emails that they used to register in Facebook. And the reality is, merong tools to actually find people using of course, the real names and the emails that they use in signing up to Facebook. And the thing about Facebook too is that nag-allow siya ng multiple emails. So okay lang na okay lang na maraming emails i-associate doon for that in case na ma-hack or ang Facebook mo, meron kang chance na mabawi siya. But on Twitter does not allow that. Parang single email, single profile lang or account ang ina-allow nila. Okay, the last one was the question. And welcome to.
I think that's it for our open forum. Thank you, sir, Hanselin. And
Thank you.
I think the audience have heard so much about you po and about cybersecurity when working at home. I think that's it for us. I think, may I ask everyone to take note of the link that will be shown on the screen for the evaluation. Please answer the evaluation form. In this way, you will able to receive the certificate of attendance on the previous talk. So for those in our Zoom webinar, I believe the link will be on the chat box that will be sent by my colleague. There you go. Which is also true to the comment section on our Facebook page. So for those that have blurry reception, you can actually scan the QR code, and please take note that these letters are case sensitive, meaning we need to be mindful whether a letter is in uppercase or lowercase. I hope you're taking note of this. I think if you close this webinar, the link will actually be prompted to you after. But just in case, please get the link. Okay. Um, I am encouraging everyone to still join us to the upcoming two last sessions of this series, which will happen in March 28th and April 11th. In March 28th, we will have the topic Cybersecurity for UPLD faculty from um, Assistant Professor of ICS, Maribetel de Robles, and also in April 11, Cybersecurity for UPLB students. So we hope we see you there. And this has been a great time with you, everyone. Thank you again for our speaker, Mr. Hansalin. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. We hope to see you again in the next 2 weeks, March 28 and April 11. This is Prince Aragones, and once again, good afternoon. Have a great day, and goodbye. Thank you.
Okay na? Sige, thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Prince.
Thank you, Sir Danny. Thank you,
Okay.
Sir
Yeah.
Jacob.
Bye.